Welcome back. This is the second video about shooting. The first video I did was about who can shoot and what they can shoot at. So if you haven't looked at that video, go ahead and watch it and then come back to this one. And this one is, now we know who can shoot. And we know they can shoot at their target. Well, how do they hit that target? So that's what this video is going to be about. Before we start rolling some dice and showing how that works, I need to go over a few things. One of them is, before you shoot, you need to rotate to face your target. So I'm going to bring this down. And I got my poor little Sherman here as the little guinea pig. These first examples are going to be, it's in your field of fire. So here it is. Here's the front of the vehicle. Actually, this is a 360, this is church, so it's in your field of fire. They can decide just to rotate, or they can rotate the vehicle. Their choice. Now you're saying, well, why wouldn't you rotate this to keep the armor up front, which I'll get to? Well, there may be another, like a Pershing setting over here. A little bit this over here. You're like, oh, you know what? I don't want to expose my side armor to that Pershing. I'd rather my front armor, and I'll just do that. So on turreted weapons, you have the choice. Hull mounted, you have to rotate the vehicle. So if that Pershing's setting over here, this is going to expose its side armor, but that's the choice with hull mounted. If it's infantry, just rotate them. They're like a turret, 360, just rotate them. They're field of fire. Gun teams. Oh, it's in the, here's the front, it goes across, it's reaching that, so rotate. Man-pack gun teams, same thing. Rotate. They only see on the front. Now this next example will be if it's not in the field of fire, and I talked about that in the first video. So of course, this has 360 degrees, so don't worry about that. Well, here's the line on the front of the hull mounted. It's behind it. It has to rotate. Since this is not in its field of fire, that's considered a move. So it may be a bogging check. Also, its rate of fire is going to go down. So instead of rolling 2 dice, this is going to roll 1 die. So that's one of the benefits to having a turreted weapon. No penalty. And I'll get to about the reducing rate of fire in this video. Same with man-pack gun teams. It's out of field of fire. Considered to have moved. Takes the penalties for that. Infantry, well, they have 360, so that's not a problem with them. Man-pack gun team, that is a problem, because they can only shoot what's in front of them, so it's going to have to rotate. So rotate to face your target. And again, if you're in rough terrain and it's not in your field of fire, you have to take a bogging check. If you're in rough terrain and it's in your field of fire, you don't have to do a bogging check. Another thing is, I have these 2 guns here, and the Sherman's sitting over here, and they want to shoot the Sherman. It's coming in to attack. It's their turn, so they have to rotate. Well, the problem I have is they're going to rotate, and one's going to overlap the other. If that's going to happen, this one cannot shoot. Even if it was like this, and it's in its field of fire, and it can, well, you know what? You're overlapping, there's not enough room to rotate, you can't fire. So when you rotate and it's going to overlap, the one that's overlapping can't shoot. Next, we're going to look at, you're up against a wall. So here's the stug. It's right up against this wall. Sherman's over here. It's in its field of fire. It could also be not only wall, similar terrain. I mean, it could be a row of bushes here. If it's dug in a building or an entrenchment, It does not and may not rotate to face the target. It's stuck here in this position. However, it can still shoot. Now, if it's touching the wall, so it's not flush up against it now it's just touching the wall. Or, another thing would be if it's touching the table edge. So, the same thing, the building walls, all that, entrenchments, or touching the table edge. It can be moved to rotate to face the target, but it still has to touch that wall, or the table edge, and so forth. Now, let's say it's here. This is in its field of fire, but there's another wall right there. And it's rotating, and you know what? There's not enough room to rotate. It can't shoot. So, from what I got from the rules is it's best to be flush up against a linear terrain. Because then, yeah, you can shoot, unless they're not in your field of fire, then you're going to have to move. But if you're touching it, and you need to rotate, and there's not enough room to rotate, then it can't shoot. Gun teams, and this does not include man. So think infantry. This does not include the infantry type, like bazookas and machine guns. The gun teams like this, if they're in very difficult terrain, they do not rotate to face the target, but still can shoot. And again, it has to be in their field of fire. So if the poor little Sherman, here it is, yep, it's in its field of fire, it's in very difficult terrain, it does not rotate. It stays here, just like, and can shoot. So it's just like if it was up against the wall. So that wall situation in the very difficult terrain situation is going to be the same for gun teams. Everybody else will rotate to face the target in that very difficult terrain. Now, next thing we need to do is we're done facing our target. We're going to check concealment. Concealment is at least half of the enemy's model is hidden by terrain. And if they are, it's considered concealed, and it makes one harder to shoot at them or range in with your artillery. And I'll have a video about artillery bombardment. So it's just, if they're concealed, it's one harder to hit them. Now I got a couple examples here. So I'm going to take this off the stand. Kind of show you what I'm talking about. So if we look here at this tank here, it's looking down this way. Whoops. It's looking down this way. And if you look, you can see a couple of studs. There they are. So we got a couple of studs. This one on the right, if you really look, let me get a little better here. Boy, about, I say half that model, at least half that model is covered. It's going to have concealment. It's going to be one harder for me to hit it. So instead of needing 4s to hit it, now I need 5s. This stud, well look, the whole top's not covered, part of the left side's not covered, it's not 50% covered. There's no penalty to shoot this one due to concealment. So this one would be concealed, this one is not. Let's go over here and look at some infantry. So I'm going to zoom back. So here we are, we got these Americans looking down here at these Germans. And if you look, wow, these guys are like in the open. No concealment, so no penalty. Wow, these guys are behind that bush, kind of trying to hide, so I would give them concealment. So it's going to be one harder to hit them. So it may take 4s to hit them, 5s to hit them. Which would you rather shoot if it's the enemy? I take the ones with the 4s. Another type is you can use hills, and this is vehicles. So we're back at the Sherman, and what it's doing is it's looking up at this hill, And oh boy, there's a German tank sitting there. Look at that. This tank is what's considered hull down. Basically, it's looking over the hill. So anybody it's looking at from this position does not get concealment from the hill. But anybody shooting at him from this side of the hill gives him concealment. So it's one harder to hit him. If he was on this side of the hill, he wouldn't have that. So one of the things when you're trying to do hull down like this, tell your opponent, hey, I'm trying to get hull down from this platoon. Is this okay? Is this a good position? Talk to your opponent. It alleviates a lot of arguments. So, like, you're wanting to get this hull down, just don't do it and say, hey, I got hull down. And your opponent goes, no, you don't. And then you start arguing with each other. Yeah, I didn't know you don't. Talk to each other. Say, hey, I want this to be hull down. Is this hull down against this platoon? If not, he'll tell you, oh, move a little to the right. Okay, there you are. Now you're hull down. Okay, thank you. So it's very important. Talk to your opponent about things you're trying to do like that. Makes the game much more fun. Now I want to talk a little about linear terrain. So I'm going to put this back down here. And I talked a little bit about linear terrain in the previous video. So what we got is this machine gun unit really wants to get shots off of these against this infantry coming up. Well, this is taller than both of them. They're not going to be able to see through it, so neither can shoot. They move right flush up against it. They can shoot them, but they can shoot back also. However, they're right up against this linear terrain, and again, it could be a wall. That book I talked about in the last video told you what was linear terrain. So here's the linear terrain. They moved up there. They can shoot them. They can shoot them. However, they have eliminated this penalty for linear terrain. It's normal shooting to hit them. So if they need fours, let's say they both need fours to hit each other. They need fours to hit them. However, they're shooting, they can see them now, but they're shooting through this linear terrain. It's one harder to hit them. They're going to need fives to hit these guys. So fours or fives. Now they've made it up there. There's no penalty. They're both looking through it. There's no penalty. There's no concealment. So neither can shoot. Easier to hit. No penalty. Oh, concealed. Nobody's concealed against each other. So that's linear terrain. It's kind of the same with the hill in a way, how that hill is kind of like linear terrain. That tank's up against the edge of the linear terrain, pretend. Let me get it dug up here. So it's doing this hull down with that hill. But once you get around that hill, it's lost its hull down. Now we're looking over here at these woods. So let me get this here. So here's this woods. It's kind of a big woods here. And we got this tank that's halfway in and halfway out. And we got this stug here. They can shoot each other. However, it's similar to that linear terrain. Almost think of it as like this. If you're halfway in and halfway out, you're representing that you're using this terrain to give you cover. But you're eliminating this cover from the opponent. This is what I mean. If, say they both need fours, I'm just going to use that as another example. They both need fours to hit each other. This needs fours to hit this needs fours to hit that, if this was in the open. Now, this is considered concealed. This now needs fives to hit this. But because he's at the edge, and you always just stick halfway in, halfway out, because he's at the edge of that forest, this does not benefit from concealment. So he only needs fours to hit him. So that's one of the benefits about being at the edge. You get concealment, but you eliminate that concealment from the opponent. However, field of fire, you can't shoot, too far back into here, so he can't shoot into something way back here. So that's one of the deals about being out there. You get concealment, but you eliminate the concealment from the opponent. Now, I'm going to take him off. And we got this one that's in the terrain. And we got this stug that's moved up. Remember, I talked in the last video how they have to be within 6 inches of each other. So they're within 6. Well, this one is shooting through the woods. This one's shooting through the woods. They both have concealment from each other. So this one will need 5s to hit that one. This will need 5s to hit that one. This situation, 4s to hit, 5s to hit. 5s to hit, 5s to hit. Now digging in, I talked about that in the movement that you can dig in. So these infantry have dug in. Always, again, always mark what your unit's done with markers, like gone to ground, dug in. If you ranged in, put the marker. It's bogged down, put a marker. If they moved at the double, put a marker. It's very important because you will forget and your opponent will forget. And believe me, I have forgotten. And I've watched many video on YouTube where things weren't marked and people forgot. And you're like, well, wait, that unit moved at the double. You should have double dice, and you guys forgot. And it could change the whole outlook of the game. So infantry, man-packed, light gun teams, medium gun teams can dig in and are concealed. So if they dig in, they're concealed. If this artillery over here digs in, they are concealed. Or the man-pack, shouldn't say the artillery. The man-pack like machine guns. So if there's machine guns in here, that's concealed. Now, if you get to heavy and immobile guns, and again, it tells you in your arsenal, I talked about that, like light team, gun team, medium, heavy, immobile. It'll tell you again. Heavy and immobile guns and all anti-aircraft guns are not concealed when they dig in, unless they're concealed by terrain. So these guys can dig in and they're fine. They get concealment. The big guns, when they say like heavy, immobile, like these artillery pieces, they can dig in. But unless, and I talked about concealment, we talked about showing the tanks and the infantry about concealment. So unless these guys have some concealment against the opponent's shooting, they get no bonus. Now another thing is, and also if you're dug in, you can still shoot and stay concealed. Now let's say these Germans up here didn't move. So these Germans didn't move. Infantry and man-pack gun teams, if they don't move, are concealed in the open. So even though there's no terrain, like this guy is going to shoot them, there's nothing between here to block the line of sight. So no terrain features, so they don't get any concealment. However, they didn't move. So they are considered concealed because they can drop down, they can hide, they can disperse a little bit. They're small targets. So it's called concealed in the open. And that would be one harder to hit them. So they could have dug in, and that's what they did on their movement phase, was dig in. Well, they didn't move. They're concealed in the open. If they tried to dig in and failed, they still didn't move. They're concealed in the open. And it makes it one harder to hit that infantry and man-pack gun teams. So, and also, if they assault, they can't be concealed in the open. So if you didn't move, you didn't assault, you can be concealed in the open. You can still shoot, and you're still concealed in the open. It's just, do you move whether you move to assault, whether you move normal. Another thing that may pop up is multiple terrain features. So, this infantry here somehow wants to shoot these guys up here, but they're concealed. Well, that makes it one harder to hit. Well, what if another piece of terrain is giving them some more concealment? Well, now, are we at 2 penalty to hit? So instead of needing 4, 5, 6, well, what if it's another one? 7. Oh my gosh. Took 4, 5, 6, 7 to hit him. It doesn't work that way. Whether it's one piece of terrain or something giving them concealment in the open, or 2, 3, 500 pieces of terrain, is still only 1 penalty, as long as they're still a valid target. So if you're shooting through multiple terrains, don't worry about it, it's 1. Makes it 1 harder to hit the target. Another thing that infantry can do is what's called gone to ground. And again, please mark. So I mark that. Boom, they've gone to ground. Now, teams that did not move shoot assault on their turn or conduct anti-aircraft fire on their previous turn or the opponent's preceding turn are considered gone to ground. And this is where it kind of can get a little confusing. Gone to ground doesn't give you anything at first. So if they're shooting here, both these have moved, they're not concealed or anything, that gone to ground does nothing. However, these guys are now concealed, so let's say this piece of terrain's blocking it so that they are now concealed. Well, they have 1, it's 1 harder to hit them because they're concealed, but because they're concealed and gone to ground, it's another 1 penalty to hit them. Now it's 2 to hit these guys. So instead of needing 4s, they need 6s. They need 6s to hit them. That's what gone to ground does for you. But for you to get the benefit of gone to ground, you also have to be concealed somehow. So in this case, there's no penalty. 4, 5, 6, 4. You only get that extra 1 benefit from gone to ground if you're also concealed. Tanks can't be concealed in the open as usual, so tanks can also benefit from this, but they would also need terrain. These guys can be concealed in the open and then don't do anything, and they're going to ground. They're too hard to hit, whether or not there's terrain between them, because they are concealed in the open. Tanks never get concealed in the open. They have to actually use a piece of terrain. Somehow use a piece of terrain. So this tank here is hiding behind a piece of terrain here, getting some concealment. It didn't move, didn't shoot, didn't do anything. It's gone to ground. It's 2 harder to hit it. 1 harder to hit it. No harder to hit it. Now, if a infantry, a gun team, or an unarmored vehicle is hit 5 times, it becomes pinned. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm going to talk about rate of fire in just a minute, or in a little bit, so I need to bring up pinned so you can understand. They are now pinned. They've been hit, not killed units, they were hit 5 times. At least. It may be more. Maybe it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 20 times they got hit. As long as it's just at least 5, that unit becomes pinned. So it's infantry, man-packed, and unarmored vehicles become pinned if they get 5 or more hits on them. Warrior and independent teams never become pinned down unless, I talked about this in the last video about joining, unless they joined this platoon and becomes pinned down, but then when this step's over, they unjoin them, they become unpinned. Vehicles, never worry about pinning. Don't, like this tank over here, you don't do this. Oh, you pinned my tank. It doesn't work that way. Armored and open top, don't do it. It's the unarmored vehicles can become pinned down. Not that. Like your Jeeps. Your Jeeps could become pinned down. Now, another penalty that happens. So we had one for concealment. There isn't that many penalties for shooting as far as the two hit roll. One of them is they're concealed. The second one is they're concealed and gone to ground. Another one is any shot that is over 16 inches, not artillery. That's a different thing I'm going to talk about. I'm just saying rifles, machine guns, tank shots, not artillery shots, not artillery bombardments. If it's over 16 inches, it's 1 harder to hit the target. So if we go over here and look at these infantry, and I bring out the tape measure, well, the Americans need 4s to hit them. Are they over 16? No, the enemy's not over 16. So there's not that penalty. There's no terrain here. They didn't move though, so they are concealed, so I need a 5 to hit them. They're concealed, +1. Not on the ground, 0. No terrain, 0. So instead of needing 4s, I need 5s. Well, what about this tank? If it wants to shoot that stug, it's way down there. Is it? Oh, it's definitely over 16 inches. It's over 16 inches. So it's going to be 1 harder to hit that stug. So instead of needing 4s, now I need 5s to hit them. If it's over 6, I shouldn't say that. Yeah. If the target number you need to roll is over 6, so you need now a 7 to hit the target, which can happen. If you need a 7 or higher to hit the target, it's an impossible shot. You can't do it. So if it's 6 or less, yeah, that's what you need to roll on a die. That number or higher. So if it's 5s, you need to roll 5s or higher. If it's 4, you need to roll 4 or higher. Another penalty to think about is, and this is the last one. So really, this is how simple it is with the modifiers. Is that if you're ready to fire 1 weapon, like these infantry have, ready to fire, they get 1 die for their rifles. 1 die. 1 die. 1 die. If they move, it's 1 harder to hit the opponent for them. And I'll get to why that happens when we get to rate of fire, but that's the other penalty. So we have, are they concealed? That's 1 penalty. Are they concealed and gone to ground? That's another +1 penalty. Are they over 16 inches? That's another +1 penalty. Are you a rate of fire 1 weapon and you moved? That's another penalty. Also, if you're pinned down. So if these guys are, my pinned down marker. So they're pinned down, whether they moved or not. Their rate of fire is dropped. They're ready to fire 1 weapon. So they're going to have a 1 penalty to shoot. So it's going to be 1 harder for them to hit the target. Now okay, so we got these penalties. What do I need to roll to hit? And I just was throwing 4 out there, just for example purposes. But what you need to do is go to your training, or the opponent's training, actually, I should say. And this is that 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. The higher the number, the harder it is to hit the opponent. And it's not your training, it's the opponent's training level. And I talked a little bit about this in one of my videos. So these Germans here, I'm going to kind of give you an example here of what's going to happen. These Germans are veterans. So even though there's not like a bush here maybe, or a rock, or a goalie, the veterans know to use those to make it harder for them to be a target. Your trained are a little better. They're going to use some. Your conscripts, they're just, let's go guys, let's go. And they're much easier to hit because they're not using those terrain features to help them. So, if these are conscripts, I need, let's say I get 6 attacks. They're conscripts, and I'm not putting any penalties to this right now. They're conscripts. I need 2s to hit them. Oh, I hit with every shot. I didn't get a 1. Now, they're a little better trained. They're considered trained. I need 3s to hit them. Oh, wow. That was actually a really bad roll. I only hit twice. If I would have rolled a 3, been okay. This 2, missed. This would have hit them if they were conscript, but they're trained, so that's gone. Now, they're veterans. I need 4s. Gosh, I just can't roll. That is horrible rolling. Alright, so if it's a 5, 4, I'm going to do 3. Where's my 2? Okay, so here we go. So this is what I rolled. I should have done this, just did it this way. If they are conscripts, I missed once. Because I need 2 or higher. If they are trained, I need 3 or higher, I missed twice. If they're veterans, I need 4 or higher, I hit 3 times. So that's how you roll, or your starting number that you need to hit. It's what is the opponent's training level. Conscript, trained, or veteran. 2, 3, 4. That's your starting number that you're going to start putting these penalties to. So again, concealed and gone to the ground. If over 16 and you're shooting not artillery bombardment, over 16. And if you moved or you are pinned and you have rate of fire 1 weapon. So let's go back to this example. And these guys, I just did the one about them being in the open. Now they're concealed. And I'm going to do that 1, 2, 3, 4 thing again. So let's get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's my die roll. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The Americans are trying to hit these Germans over here, and they're conscripts. Well, this terrain wouldn't be there. They would need 2. Now they need 3s. So they could miss it twice. If they're trained, I need 4s. I need 3s, sorry, 3s. Now I need 4s. So now, it's going to that. All I'm doing is adding 1 to the target number. Veterans start at 4. Penalty 1, it goes to 5s. Wow. You need 5s or 6s to hit these guys with just one little piece of concealment on them. Now, if these guys are going to ground, that and the terrains, they're concealed by terrain or concealed in the open. Now it's 2 harder to hit them. So conscripts now, look at that, you need 4s. Trained, you need 5. Veterans, you need 6. So I'd only get 1 hit if they were a veteran. All that shooting. Compared to, I only need 4s. So again, 2, 3, 4. Then add your 1 penalties. Gone to ground, or not gone. Don't want to start with that one. Concealed and gone to ground. over 16 inches, if you have a rate of fire 1 weapon, you are pinned or you move. So the max penalty you're going to have is 4. And that's why when it goes over 6, the target number, what you need to roll, goes over 6, you can't shoot. So this tank wants to shoot these guys, and they're veterans. So let me get where you can see the tank over here. There we go. So this tank wants to shoot them. They're veterans. This German group here is veterans. Put that, take this away, because they didn't move. They're concealed in the open. So whether or not this piece of terrain was there or not, they're concealed. So it's 1 harder to hit them. Well, they've also haven't done anything else. They're gone to ground. So they're concealed and gone to ground. That's a 2. And it's over 16 inches to hit them. That's another penalty. That's 3. They started at 4, 5, 6, 7. This tank can't even shoot them. So again, if it goes over 6, your target number, you can't shoot the target. And it can happen. I just showed you right there. Very simple. They're concealed, gone to ground. It's over 16 inches. Now, you're also wondering, okay, got a problem. Let's go back to these guys. They're no longer concealed in the open. However, this one's shooting, got a clear shot. This guy is shooting, and you know what? It's shooting through terrain, it's shooting through terrain, so it's going to be 1 harder. Well, actually, this is an easier shot. This one can shoot this for no concealment, or shoot this one that's got concealment. So what do you do in a situation like that where you have, it's the same platoon, but you have 2 different target numbers? Well, you shoot the easiest target. In this case, this guy is going to shoot this target here because it doesn't want that penalty for shooting them. This one's got a clear shot, this one's got a clear shot. This one doesn't want to shoot these guys for 1 penalty, or this one for no penalty. So shoot the easiest target out of the platoon. That's the simple rule there. You go for the easiest target. So if all these guys, let's say these guys are getting ready to shoot, and all these Germans are over here behind this concealment, but this one guy is not, he's bringing down this whole unit. You target this, and then the hits, which I'll get to, are going to be distributed among the whole platoon. That's a valid target. So shoot the easiest target out of the platoon. Now, how many dice do you roll? Well, I got the there's a rate of fire for your weapons in the in your arsenal. You know, like the tank had a 2, machine gun had a 3. It tells you, that's how, ROF, that tells you how many dice you're going to roll. So let's look at an arsenal here, and bring this down. Now let's kind of show you how you find this. So we got these tanks, and here's their gun. Rate of fire is the second number down, 2. So it's going to get 2 dice. This gets 2 dice. A lot of your tanks are going to have 2. 2, 2. What's really going to be different is when you get over to like gun teams and stuff like that. So let's, whoops. And it tells you right there, rate of fire. Well, this one gets 3 dice, this one gets 5, this one gets 6, 2. That's an artillery bombardment. 2. So it's telling you the rate of fire for that weapon, which is over here. So if you have an M2 50 caliber machine gun, you're going to get 3 dice to roll. M1919 light machine gun, you're going to get 5 dice to roll. If it's a 1917 heavy machine gun, 6 dice. So if you're not sure how many dice, go to your arsenal and it'll tell you. Infantry teams, same thing. So let's go up here. Carbine, 1 shot. Rifle, 1. Rifle machine gun team, 2. Submachine gun, 3. Bazooka, 1 shot. There's that 1 shot weapon, so if it moves or it's pinned, it's going to have that 1 penalty to hit the target. And then that's how you read that. So if you're not sure about your rate of fire, go to your arsenal, look up your weapon, and it'll tell you ROF, rate of fire. That's how many dice you're going to roll. Now, this can change, and this is if you move. Remember I said about if the rate of fire 1 weapon moves, there's that 1 penalty. Well, it's true for any weapon except for vehicle machine guns. If a vehicle moves, it's machine guns, this will not affect them. But everybody else, tank main gun, rifle, man-packed machine guns, stuff like that, all these, they all take the same penalty if they move, and that is your rate of fire drops to half, and you round down. So, if it's got a rate of fire 2, so let me bring 2 dice here. So we have a rate of fire 2. That tank here is getting 2 dice. Well, it moved. Its main gun gets 2 dice. Well, it moved. Now it only gets 1 shot. Now that's not so much the tank, but I'm just giving this as an example. If its rate of fire is 3 and it moves, it goes down to 1. Because half of 3 is 1.5, you round down. If it's getting 4 shots, now it's getting 2. If it's at 5 and it moves, 3. Or 2, sorry, 2. And then if it has 6 shots and moves, now you're down to 3 dice. So all weapons do that except machine guns on vehicles. They still keep their full rate of fire. And again, if, like these rifle teams, only have 1 die per group, well, you can't take half of that away and leave nothing. So that's where that +1 penalty comes in. You still get your 1 die, but it's 1 harder to hit the target. If they have 2 shots, they lose 1 of those, but there's no penalty. That 1+ penalty, it's not there. It's only if you have a rate of fire 1 weapon. And if you are pinned, like I had that pinned down, these guys became pinned down. Units that are pinned down, their rate of fire drops to half. So that same attrition of dice applies if you're pinned down or you move. Passengers in vehicles cannot shoot. So if these rifle teams jump into a half track and run around, they don't get a shoot. However, if there's a passenger fired weapon, they can fire that weapon. If the vehicle is carrying passengers, then the passengers can fire that weapon. If there's no passengers in there, that weapon does not get fired. And also, if you move that double, of course I talked about this in the last video, you don't get a shoot, period. So don't even worry about how many dice you get. You don't get to shoot. Now, you know how many dice you're going to get. We talked about the target number you need to hit the target. And again, it starts at 2, 3, 4. Conscript, trained, veteran. And then add those +1 modifiers. There's something very, very, very important I need to go over. And has to do with vehicles and their armor. There's front armor and side armor. The rear's the same as side, and then there's top armor, which is on the top. And again, I talked about this in the video when we were looking at some of these arsenals. So just recap again really quick. It tells you right here. Front, side, top, front, side, top. Front, it's that top line. Front, side, top, front, side, top, front, side, top. So you can see front, side, top. Front, side, top, front, side, top, front, side, top. So it tells you there. So what we got is we got this Sherman. We'll zoom back out. And the Stug is wanting to hit the Sherman. But it's really wanting to get on the side. Remember, rear's the same as side armor. It can't shoot the top. That's used for artillery bombardment, and it's also used when this vehicle is assaulted. So really, most of the time you're going to use side or front. If it shoots from the front, it has less of a chance probably of taking out the vehicle as hitting the side. And when we get to results of hits, which is the next video, I'll cover what's going to happen there. So, this really wants to hit the side. How do I know if I'm hitting side or front of this vehicle? Now, of course, gun teams, unless they got a gun shield, I'll have to get to that, and man-pack gun teams and infantry teams, unarmored vehicles, it doesn't matter what side you hit. This is for armored vehicles. So, how you tell is, you draw a line down the front of this vehicle, just like if you would for like shooting. And if where the gun is attached here crosses that front of the vehicle, it's shooting the side. So if it's up here, maybe I could bring this down a little bit where you can see it a little easier. So here's the main gun. It's shooting the front. If it slides a little bit that way, now it's hitting the side. So that's how you tell. You go again, where's that mounted at? If it's men, well, what do we do in this situation? Because we got guys here, here, here. Well, look at the end of the base. It's on the side. You can shoot the side. Because remember, when we look, when we're targeting with infantry or gun teams, we look at the whole base to try to see the target. So we can go to this end to shoot the side. We were targeting from this, so that's what we're going to use to see if we're in the front or side. Front, side. So that's how you tell if you're going to hit the front of the armor or the side of the armor of a vehicle. Now there is some stipulations with, and I talked about that with this, getting to shoot, okay, it's got a main gun, but it also has 3 machine guns. You can, if your vehicle has multiple weapons, you can shoot them, but there are some rules. You just don't get to shoot all the dice, okay? If the vehicle has 2 main guns, and there's a few tanks that do, then it can, this is one of those weird situations that it can actually shoot 2 different platoons, and it gets to keep all its dice, as long as it didn't move. I'm going to go with this as if they didn't move. So it gets to use all of its dice. Well, they really don't get all their dice, but they can split their shooting up to 2 different targets. So in this example would be, let's say this Stug has a main gun here and a main gun here. And there's that, and he's man-packed. It can shoot 1 at that, 1 gun at this, and shoot 1 gun at this platoon. They're 2 different platoons. It can do that. Or it could, concentrate all its fire on 1 target. So if it has 2 main guns, there's not too many like that, you have that choice. Now, 1 gun will be full rate of fire. So if it gets 2 dice, let me go back down here. I shouldn't have moved that so quick. So it says, you know what? I'm going to shoot 2 dice at this. The second gun only gets 1 die. It doesn't get 2. It doesn't go 2 dice, 2 dice. It's going to get 2 dice, 1 die, if it wants to shoot both guns. Now, if my Sherman here wanted to shoot all of its machine guns, 1 machine gun gets 3 dice. So there's a hull mounted, there's a coaxial, and then there's an anti-aircraft machine guns. Wow, that's 9 dice. It doesn't quite work that way. What happens is the first machine gun gets its full rate of fire. Every additional machine gun adds 1 die. So these are gone. So now I get 5 shots with that if I want to shoot all my machine guns. So if this, a vehicle like a half track would have machine guns on both sides, 1 would get full, 1 would get that. All right. If the Sherman wants to shoot its main gun, so I'm going to get different dice for that, but it also has all these machine guns. You're thinking, wow, that's a lot of dice. Look at all those dice. It doesn't quite work that way. The main gun's going to get its full rate of fire. Each additional die is going to get 1. Now there is some stipulation with this, and I'm going to get to that because you can't shoot your main gun and all these machine guns. But I'm just doing this for example purposes. Is if you shoot your main gun, all the other guns drop to 1 die. Now, you can't fire the main gun and this top gun's an anti-aircraft. So that's going to take that group of dice. I'm going to put this like this. So this is the hull-mounted coaxial anti-aircraft. So if this shoots, that can't do that. The commander can't be commanding where to shoot the main gun and be controlling the anti-aircraft gun at the same time. So if this shoots, the anti-aircraft, this cannot shoot. If this shoots, the anti-aircraft cannot shoot. They use the same person. Just think of it that way. Now, also, if it's a cupola-mounted machine gun, a turret front-mounted machine gun, same situation. Main gun in it can't. Now, a coaxial machine gun, which is in here in the turret, they can fire at the same time. And the hull-mounted and this turreted main gun can shoot at the same time. So I can get those 2 extra dice from these 2 machine guns. I can't get the extra dice from this one. Now, we got a situation with a hull mounted. So this has got a main gun, 2 dice. It's also got a hull mounted machine gun. This is different than a turreted weapon, like this one. It's got a turret. This is a hull mounted. Remember I showed you how you find out whether it's hull mounted and stuff like that. So it's got a hull mounted main gun and a hull mounted machine gun. You're going to decide, do you want to shoot the machine gun or do you want to shoot the main gun? Shoot the main gun, this is what you're rolling. Shoot the machine gun, this is what you're rolling. If it's a hull mounted main gun and a hull mounted machine gun, it's one or the other. It's not both. So that's one of the little bonuses for having something like this turreted main gun is the coaxial will shoot and so will the hull mounted. There's just not enough room for this main gun to be working and the other people. So if it's a hall-mounted main gun, you're basically, which one of these do you want to shoot? You can't shoot both. If it's a twin machine gun, and it'll tell you this, twin machine gun, you get 2 dice instead of 1. So let's pretend this has twin machine guns. It doesn't, but let's pretend. Shooting its main gun, you're going to get 2 dice instead of 1. And if it's twin machine gun turrets, and they have a rate of fire of 3, and I showed you about those turrets in that field of fire. So this gets 3 shots, and this turreted one gets 3 shots. They get to keep those. And just like if it was that multiple main guns, they shoot at different targets, these can shoot at different targets, and they get to keep their full rate of fire for those machine guns. Infantry have a rate of fire 1, so if they're pinned, you can't take part of that die away, so that +1 penalty, or if they move, +1 penalty to hit the enemy. Rifle machine gun, it'll tell you a lot of some of the Germans have like rifle machine guns. They get 2 dice. If they move or pinned, it goes down to 1. Machine guns generally have a rate of fire of 3. But this is a little tricky. If they move, they drop like normal. Because you can't have 1.5, you drop the half off, you're down to 1. However, if they're pinned, they only lose 1 die. So that is something to try to remember. Don't move. Moved. Pinned. 1, 2, 3 with these guys. So that is a little tricky. Submachine guns. I'm just going to bring out my bazooka guys for that. Okay, pretend like a submachine gun. They get 3 dice. If they move, they get 3 dice. If they're pinned, they drop to 1. So whether or not they move, they get 3 dice. However, if they're pinned, they drop to 1. That's submachine gun. Assault guns have 3 dice. And you know what? It's the same as submachine gun. They moved, pinned. So submachine gun and assault guns get the same bonus. Now, light mortars. I talked about that. They have a firepower 4+, so they can shoot over the enemy. If fired directly, there has to be an 8-inch minimum, so they can't shoot within 8 inches of themselves. And they normally have, unless they're doing, they could do like that direct shot at enemies, and they get 2 dice. If they moved, they're down to 1, and so forth. Now, let's say we got this bazooka team or this mortar team that have like really, specialized weapons. They can, and flamethrowers too, because flamethrower is a one-shot weapon. Once you use it, you take the model off. These guys can shoot the bazooka, or they can pretend like they're infantry and just shoot their normal 1-die rifles. Same with these. Same with these. They can shoot, instead of like, I don't want to, you know what, I don't know why you wouldn't. These guys I can maybe see. You know what, I don't want to shoot that. This would be another one. Here's a good example. You don't want to shoot your main shot at the, so what you want to do is, because you have to turn, there's going to be a penalty to shoot, so they can shoot as a rifle team and get 1 die. And now they're shooting rifles instead of this gun. So gun teams in like bazookas, stuff like that, they go, I don't want to shoot the weapon I've got here, I want to just shoot as a rifle. You have that choice. Depends upon the situation. And flamethrowers, which I'm pretending like this is my flamethrower, just like submachine guns and assault rifles, when they move or not, they get a certain number of dice. Same with flamethrowers. Whether or not they moved, they get 2 dice. Now there's heavy machine guns, HMGs, which I'm just going to throw out this out here for a heavy machine gun. Heavy machine gun gets 6 dice to shoot with. Ooh, that's a lot of dice in one weapon. If they're pinned or moved, it's the normal remove half. So they're a little different than the light machine gun. Light machine gun's at 1, 2, 3. This is just take half away. Pinned or moved. Light machine gun has a rate of fire of 5. If pinned or moved, 2 dice. So that's normal. The light machine gun's the one that's going to be the trickier one as far as removing dice. And let's see. Mortars, I already talked about that, firing over. And talked about rifles, and they can shoot as rifles and stuff like that. The last thing is about smoke. I have some artillery over here. So I'm going to move this over here where we see this artillery. And they are wanting to smoke, throw smoke down there towards those studs. Now what smoke does is, people looking through the smoke can only see 16 inches. They can't see anything beyond 16 inches. And also, anybody that shoots through smoke, the target is concealed and on the ground, so it makes it too harder to hit them. So if they're beyond 16, you can't shoot. If they're within 16 and you're shooting through the smoke, it's too harder to hit them. Whether or not they're dug in or anything like that, the smoke creates that for them. Now, if you're going to do smoke bombardment, and this is more like your artillery and some of your mortars, that's going to create a big piece of smoke, and we'll be getting to that. So if you're going to do smoke, if you're going to do the smoke bombardment, so now they want to throw this big piece of smoke, they hit, so this is going to go down here, boom. So now these studs, looking through that smoke, maybe trying to hit these Shermans now. Well, the Shermans are beyond 16, but if the Shermans were within 16, they're concealed and on the ground. So instead of, like, say they're veterans, you need 4s, concealed, 5, on the ground, 6. They'll need 6s to hit these guys instead of the 4. Now they can go, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to get rid of the smoke and move over here. Well, now what they've done is they've gone from 2 dice shooting, they moved, they're down to 1 die each because that smoke made them move. So that's smoke bombardment, not doing just smoke direct shoot. But it has to be your first shot in that turn in shooting. Smoke bombardment. And that's going to make it harder for the opponent to hit you. But also, if this Sherman wants to shoot them, and it's shooting through the smoke also, so it's not, oh, you're shooting at the smoke through me, but I'm not shooting through smoke. No, if they're shooting through the smoke, then you're shooting through the smoke. It's too harder to hit them also now for the Sherman. And we'll get to doing some of that during artillery. So, just if you want to do smoke bombardment, very first thing you have to do in your shooting step, but it does give your people concealment and gone to ground, and it makes it harder. I mean, they can only see 16 inches out, so there's no way they can see way down here. Now, if it's got smoke ammunition, which generally puts these out, so you can see the difference. There's a huge difference in the size. Mortars, artillery. This is more of a direct fire, so you're gonna actually look at these and see if they can see the target. If they can see the target and they hit, you put the smoke down. So let me get to where you can see the studs again. But as you see, it's a little smaller, but it has the same effect. It's still smoke. Concealment, on the ground, can't see beyond 16. But unlike that smoke bombardment, which has to be the very first shot you take, if you're going to do it, that has to be the first shot you're going to take on your turn. This can be any time in your turn. However, there's stipulation on that. It's artillery. And let's say some weird, freaky thing, the Sherman's part of this unit. Which actually could happen with priests, because they do have observers, which are Shermans. But let's say this is all one platoon. This is just for explanation purposes. And I want to do that smoke. The direct fire smoke, not the bombardment, but the direct fire smoke. Once I decide I want to shoot this platoon, this has to be the first shot from that platoon before this one can shoot. So either the smoke is going to be the very first thing you're going to shoot, or it's going to be the first weapon that's going to be shooting for that platoon when they shoot. And so that's pretty much that as far as covering how you shoot. You have that target number 2, 3, 4. You have the modifiers concealed and on the ground. Over 16. You have a rate of fire 1 weapon. You moved, or you are pinned. That's really it. It's that simple. You have that target number 2, 3, 4. Just remember that 2, 3, 4. And so that's that. So we checked. Yeah, this team can shoot. Yes, it's a valid target. Their training level is veteran, so it starts at 4. They're concealed and gone to ground. So now we're looking at 6s to hit them. Let's see, I didn't move, so I'm going to get my full dice. And I have 5 Sherman shooting, so that's 2 dice per Sherman. I'm going to have 10 dice rolling at you. And I'm going to need to roll 6s to hit you. So that's it on this video. And the next video is going to be, alright, we've hit them. What happens after we hit them? So, until next time, have a good game.